Good afternoon to you. Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com, here with your Hurricane Pro and HD video blog for Monday, July the 18th, 2016. Happy beginning of the week to you. Taking a look in the Atlantic, good news here. No hurricane activity at all expected over the next 48 hours, and that extends out beyond that time frame. Even the next 5 days, nothing to worry about. In the Eastern Pacific, as busy as it is, nothing to worry about here either in terms of impact to land. We have Hurricane Darby about to weaken down to tropical storm strength again over cooler water out this way. And then we have Tropical Storm Estelle, soon to be a hurricane, and it'll be heading out in this direction. And then something in this region along this grapevine of storms that's been prevalent lately, probably going to develop into Frank eventually. Taking a look at the tracking chart for Darby, headed towards Hawaii, but no worries as this will weaken into probably just a remnant circulation. So I think worst case scenario, an increase in rain possible for Hawaii if this even survives enough to do that. We can watch it over the next few days, but really no problems foreseen with Darby. And that's also the case with Estelle, going to be way off the coast of the Baja Peninsula. And even if it becomes a major hurricane, which it's not forecast to do, but it could, you never know. Maybe some swells headed up this way towards the coast of Southern California and the Baja, but really not a big deal from this system remaining out over the open water. Here's a satellite picture showing all of these systems very nicely. This is the leftovers of what was once Hurricane Celia, but it's dying out over the cooler water and the more stable air mass of the open Pacific. There's Darby. Again, this is headed eventually in the direction of Hawaii, but it'll suffer the same fate as Celia and weaken away. In fact, you can see the cloud tops not as bright as we have back over here with Estelle. This is already starting to feel the effects of the cooler water temperatures and the lower thermodynamic processes that are in place over that part of the Pacific Ocean. But Estelle is a lot larger, sitting over warmer water temperatures, although this entire region is definitely cooling because of all of this activity. There's still enough upper ocean heat content left that Estelle probably going to be a hurricane, but it too will remain, as I said, well off the coast of Mexico. And then you have other energy trying to gather down in the southeast Pacific, and you can see that on this low-level convergence chart here from the University of Wisconsin. Still a lot of air coming together down in this region, energy trying to fester and come together and become another named storm, and it won't be long before that happens. However, as I mentioned, you can see these sort of trails left over the wake, if you will, of these different storms and hurricanes churning up the ocean water out there. You also see the La Nina trying to come on. Very cold anomalies showing up now. It's kind of neat, isn't it? These look like little waves. There's a name for that. I forget what it is, but there's actually a very fancy term for what that's called. I'll look it up and I'll address it next week and tell you what that is. I won't forget either. It's an interesting term as to why this happens and what it's called. Meanwhile, look at this. Boy, the Western Atlantic, very warm compared to normal. The Gulf of Mexico, same way. Even the MDR here, the main development region, as dry as it is with all the dust and Saharan air layer coming out, still very warm compared to where it should be. And doesn't really matter right now with no activity, but it's only a matter of time probably. And this is the subsurface chart showing you cold water lurking below. And in fact, you can see all of this up here at the surface. This blue corresponds very nicely to what we see along the surface map here. So this is basically this, right? So this is looking down into the water like a slice, almost like a CAT scan, even though it's not the same technology, but that's the analogy I'll go with. Very cold water lurking below, and lots more of that to be upwelled and to continue to fuel this burgeoning La Nina. The upper ocean heat content, a different way to look at the energy in the ocean here. Very warm in the Western Atlantic, Caribbean, Gulf. If something comes along to tap into that, there's plenty of upper ocean heat content available. In fact, this is what it looked like at the peak of the season in '05. This is September And so we are warmer now in July than the record-setting season was in '05 in September. See that? Stark contrast there. Plus, the warmer water seems to be shifted more to the west and south this year than it was back in that record-setting season. So if something comes along, a lot of water to take advantage of that's warm not only at the surface, but tens of meters, in some cases 100 meters deep. And looking at the actual sea surface temperatures, Chesapeake Bay nice and warm, almost up to the coast of New Jersey here, with water temperatures in the mid to upper 70s, and then the Gulf Stream very warm, 30 degrees Celsius right there, right off of the North Carolina coast. We're talking about mid to upper 80s, 86, 87 degree water temperature. That's just unbelievable, especially for July. Gulf of Mexico, always going to be warm enough to support development, but this is rather impressive. Huge area of 30 degrees Celsius. We're talking about, about 88 degrees Fahrenheit, something like that, 89, and boy, right here along the shelf water of Florida, 30 and 31 degrees Celsius water temperatures. Yikes. Not fun to even go swimming in my opinion. That's maybe a little too warm. If the air temperature is 91 and the water temperature is 89, that's not very refreshing. So we'll really watch this as the season progresses. Again, nothing to worry about right now. And a big part of that is we have sort of this cyclonic flow going on. Not much in the way of wind shear overall. Most of these numbers are, not terribly high to rip the tops off of something if it were out there. But this is sort of a opposite of what in fact, not sort of, it is the opposite. We don't have any large-scale upward motion out here. This is all cyclonic converging air that's sinking and drying out. The only areas where there is sort of this high pressure in the atmosphere way up high, spreading out, divergent flow, is down in the deep tropics. But alas, if we look, I think I have it in here, the Saharan air layer definitely has a stronghold on this area. So wind shear not a problem through here, but the dry mid and low level air certainly is. And if we contrast that, this is the west coast of the United States. There's Mexico there, all these little areas down here of rising motion and divergence in the atmosphere. So you have air coming together at the lower levels down here, and in the upper levels over the top of it, air spreading apart, and that is why we're having storm after storm after storm develop in the eastern Pacific and not so much in the Atlantic. So once that flips, and it will, not 100% sure, but nothing's ever 100% in weather. Unless it is raining, then it's a 100% chance of rain, right? Isn't that how it goes? But I'm fairly certain that once the pattern flips, the Atlantic will become busy, and there's a chance that it could just stay busy like the Pacific has. So once the eastern Pacific calms down, we need to look and see if the Atlantic becomes very busy for a period of time. It could happen. But right now, for the next several days, nice and quiet across the Atlantic basin. So there you go. All right? So unless there's a problem like something threatening Hawaii that's more than just a remnant circulation, I'll be back in a week. Since there's nothing to talk about between here and then, that'll be it. Enjoy the rest of the week ahead. It's going to be hot, that's for sure, but nothing coming out of the tropics to be of any concern for coastal residents of the U.S. or Pacific Mexico. With that, have a good rest of the week ahead. I am Mark Sudduth for HurricaneTrack.com, and of course, Hurricane Pro in HD. I'll talk to you again next Monday.